Hey guys, Furum here, and today I'm going to be testing the Bolwell MK X Nagari 500 in multiplayer at Golden Max in Asphalt 9. Please consider subscribing if you have not already, and be sure to check out my Furum Clips channel as well as my Purple Team Discord. You'll find the links to those in the description, and I hope you enjoy these races. So the Bolwell, or Nagari as I will probably call it interchangeably throughout this video, is not a great car. You probably already know this if you've driven it or even seen the stats, but I just wanted to confirm it. Now, nothing about it is particularly terrible, it drives fine, the physics are okay, but in C-Class, it only goes 203 miles per hour and it doesn't really have any other standout stats, so it's gonna be kinda useless. It's just slightly better across the board than the Aston Martin V12 Speedster for context, which was a notoriously mediocre and on the bad side of mediocre car from a previous update. This one is not much better. The V12 Speedster was useful once or twice in some special events, so I would say that that's probably the biggest reason that you would want to go for this car. For example, it is the first car in the Tushek special event. You cannot start the Tushek special event if you do not own this car, so that's why it's probably worth going for if you want to get other cars in this update, but honestly, not spending tokens on. It was a car hunt car, so yeah, if you're able to start up to the car hunt, good for you. You probably have another good car for later special events, but other than that, again, not worth spending tokens on, and you'll probably forget about it if you got it until another special event comes, which has a bunch of old obscure cars from previous updates that half of people don't have because they weren't good. Rant over. Let's talk a bit more about the car's performance. As I said, the top speed was 203 miles per hour, and the rest of its stats are decent, I guess. The acceleration at 81 is pretty good, honestly, for its class, but again, not much of a standout among the rest of its stats, which are also, you know, pretty average for its class, or maybe slightly better than average, I would say. But overall, it's a pretty low mid-tier C-Class car, sitting close to the V12 Speedster, the Dodge Viper ACR, and you guys know, that kind of area where the cars are kind of slow, but they're somewhat agile, because while driving this car, it actually feels kind of nice. The trouble is, the speed is so low that in most cases, when you're running it up against, well, any other car pretty much in this season, it's going to be difficult to beat them. Now, the tracks where I was able to beat them some of the time was, like for example, in the last race on Osaka, which is a very agility-oriented track. The car drifts fairly well, so I'm able to get around the corners, like for example, the hairpin corner and some other ones without too much of an issue, and we're going to see pretty much the same thing on Rome and so on. Pretty much where this car was able to do well against the other cars of the New Breed Rival season, including even Tusheks, you know, cars that are a good 50 miles per hour faster than me, was on tracks where they just weren't able to get up to their top speed fully. Like here, one of the only reasons I was able to come in first was that this variant of Rome has a lot of twisty bits, especially near the end, and thus the Tusheks weren't able to get up to and maintain their top speed. Also, as you may have noticed, I purposefully tested this car first in the season before the other ones, so I would be in lower leagues, because if I were in higher leagues, people would know better how to, I guess, handle the higher top speed cars to be able to keep their speed on pretty much any track, and I would have no chance of winning whatsoever. So yeah, it partially has to do with the car's agility, partially has to do with me just being in a very low league. As always, I definitely want to test this car in another season, probably just a regular classic multiplayer season, or have somebody give me races in it, where it's more in a situation where you'd actually be driving it in multiplayer. Because, as I've said before, these seasons are only really good at showing the car's basic performance, like its stats. It doesn't really show you how the car itself would do in an accurate representation of regular multiplayer. So that's why I always like to do those second videos in most of the cars that I test in a regular multiplayer season, because, you know, those are the ones that last the longest. We have those 2-week classic multiplayer seasons, whether they're Ghost or Slipstream or whatever, but since you can play in any car and they're league locked, or I should say league locked by class, and I have no idea what happened there. Apparently this car is a tank too. But yeah, in regular multiplayer season, most of the cars you're going to be playing against are obviously in your own class, sometimes in lower classes as well. But most people, if you got this car, started up maybe 1 or 2, tried it in regular multiplayer, you would find mostly other C-Class cars. And I'd be really curious to know how it does against other C-Class cars. I'm thinking it would probably do similarly to how the Viper ACR does, or other low mid-tier C-Class cars, where they're able to do okay in lower Silver League, for example, but once you get closer to B-Class, they'll have a tough time beating cars like the Corvette, which, while slow for B-Class, are a good 12 or so miles per hour faster than this Bolwell here, and there's no way that I'd be able to beat them, since once you get into Gold League and beyond, players are generally fairly skilled as well, even more so on Android and iOS. On Windows, it's maybe a little bit easier to win in cars like this, even if you are in lower leagues like I am here. So I'd be curious to know, has anybody tested this car, or did anybody test this car in the New Breed Rivals season, or any of the other lower cars in that season on other platforms? And if so, how did you actually do in them? Were you able to get any victories or podium positions? Or were there a lot more two-shacks and stuff that were just impossible to beat and catch up to? Because I really have not driven in multiplayer in or on other platforms. Like, I have an Android account, and I've played on there occasionally because I think once or twice there was some feature that came out first on Android. Was not on iOS yet, I just wanted to try it, or like the update came out first then. But for the most part, I have not played multiplayer much on that platform at all. And on iOS, well, I have not played Asphalt Line at all, ever on iOS. I played Asphalt 8 first on iOS a long time ago, but since I don't have an iOS device, a lot of people keep asking me if I'll play on iOS, and the answer to that is probably not. The only way that I would probably play on iOS is if I got an iPad at some point, which is pretty much the only Apple product I would buy, because nothing against Apple by themselves, I just think the iPad is really the only device of theirs that's actually worth it, let's say. For my quick general review about this car, it's a low-end C-Class car, drives okay but it's pretty slow, not really worth going for unless you wanted to get the 2-shack. Thank you all so much for watching, please like the video if you have enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt, Forza, Minecraft, and other games content, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!